Food prices keep rising every year, but the person who grows that food is still poor. How does this system actually work? Food prices are rising across the world, and for ordinary people, even basic necessities are becoming harder to afford. Every visit to the market feels more expensive than the last, and the common explanation is always the same: global inflation, fuel costs, economic instability, or supply shortages. But behind these visible reasons lies a deeper and more uncomfortable truth, one that most people rarely think about. The real question is not just why food is becoming expensive, but why the people who produce that food, the farmers, are still struggling to survive. It is one of the biggest contradictions of the modern economy. Consumers are paying more, yet farmers are earning less. This imbalance reveals a broken system where value is created at the bottom but captured at the top. To understand this issue, we must begin with the life of a farmer. Farming is not just a profession. It is a high-risk, labor-intensive livelihood that depends heavily on factors beyond human control. Weather patterns can change unexpectedly, turning a promising crop into a failed harvest within days. Water shortages, pest attacks, and soil degradation add further uncertainty. Despite these challenges, farmers invest everything they have into their land. They spend money on seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, machinery, labor, and irrigation. In many cases, they take loans to finance these inputs, hoping that a good harvest will allow them to repay their debts and make a profit. However, over the years, the cost of these inputs has increased significantly. Fertilizers have become more expensive, fuel prices have gone up, and modern seeds often come at a higher cost. This means that even before a single crop is sold, the farmer is already under financial pressure. When the crop is finally ready, the farmer faces another major challenge: selling it. Contrary to what many people believe, farmers do not directly sell their produce to consumers. Instead, they are part of a long and complex supply chain that involves multiple intermediaries. The first step usually involves local traders or middlemen who visit farms or operate in nearby markets. These middlemen buy crops at prices that are often lower than what the farmer expects or deserves. But due to limited options, lack of storage facilities, and urgent financial needs, farmers are often forced to accept these prices. They cannot afford to wait for better market conditions because they need immediate cash to repay loans or prepare for the next planting season. Once the middlemen purchase the crops, the journey of the food has only just begun. The produce is transported to larger wholesale markets where prices increase slightly. From there, it moves to distributors and retailers, each adding their own margin to cover costs and generate profit. By the time the food reaches urban supermarkets or local shops, its price has increased significantly. For the consumer, it may seem like the high price reflects the effort and cost of production. But in reality, the farmer, the person who took the biggest risk and did the hardest work, receives only a small fraction of the final price. This system creates a situation where the farmer remains at the weakest position in the value chain despite being its foundation. Another critical issue is the lack of bargaining power. Farmers, especially small-scale ones, usually operate individually rather than as part of strong cooperatives or unions. This makes it difficult for them to negotiate better prices. On the other hand, middlemen and large buyers often have more information about market trends, demand, and pricing. This information imbalance allows them to dictate prices, leaving farmers with little choice. In many cases, farmers are price takers, not price makers. They accept whatever price is offered because rejecting it could mean losing the opportunity to sell altogether. Storage and infrastructure problems further worsen the situation. In many developing regions, proper storage facilities like cold storage units are either unavailable or too expensive. This forces farmers to sell their produce quickly after harvest, even if market prices are low. Perishable goods like fruits and vegetables are especially vulnerable as they can spoil within days if not sold. This urgency benefits middlemen who can buy at lower prices and then store or transport the goods to sell later at higher prices. In this way, the system systematically shifts profits away from farmers and toward intermediaries. At the same time, consumers are facing rising food prices due to various factors, including transportation costs, fuel prices, and inefficiencies in the supply chain. However, these higher prices do not translate into better earnings for farmers. Instead, they highlight the inefficiency of the system, where costs are passed down to consumers, but profits are not passed back to producers. This creates a disconnect between what consumers pay and what farmers earn, making it clear that the problem is not just about production but about distribution and structure. In essence, the agricultural economy operates in a way that disadvantages those at the very beginning of the chain. Farmers carry the highest risks, invest the most effort, and yet receive the least reward. Meanwhile, as food moves further away from the farm and closer to the consumer, its value increases. But this increase benefits others in the system rather than the farmer. This is the core of the problem, a system where the people who feed the world are unable to secure a stable and fair income for themselves. As we look deeper into the system, it becomes clear that the problem is not just about middlemen or rising costs, but about a larger structural failure in how agricultural economies are organized and managed. Governments, which are supposed to protect farmers and ensure fair markets, often fall short in providing effective support. In many countries, policies exist on paper, such as minimum support prices, subsidies, and financial aid, but their implementation is weak or inconsistent. Small farmers, especially in rural areas, struggle to access these benefits due to lack of awareness, corruption, or bureaucratic hurdles. Even when subsidies are provided, they are often unevenly distributed, with larger landowners benefiting more than small-scale farmers. This creates an uneven playing field where the most vulnerable farmers continue to fall behind while others gain an advantage. Another major issue is the lack of direct market access. In an ideal system, farmers would be able to sell their produce directly to consumers or retailers, eliminating unnecessary intermediaries and increasing their share of the final price. However, in reality, such systems are either underdeveloped or inaccessible to most farmers. Digital marketplaces and farmer cooperatives have been introduced in some regions, but their reach remains limited. Many farmers lack the technology, education, or infrastructure needed to participate in these modern solutions. As a result, they remain dependent on traditional supply chains that favor middlemen and large distributors. This dependency reinforces a cycle where farmers have little control over pricing and are unable to benefit from market opportunities. Global factors also play a significant role in shaping local agricultural outcomes. International trade policies, currency fluctuations, and global commodity markets can all influence the price of agricultural products. For example, if a country imports cheaper food from abroad, local farmers may be forced to lower their prices to compete, even if their production costs are higher. Similarly, fluctuations in fuel prices can increase transportation costs, which are then passed on to consumers without improving farmer incomes. Climate change adds another layer of complexity, as unpredictable weather patterns lead to crop failures, reduced yields, and increased risk. Farmers are often the first to be affected by these changes, yet they are the least equipped to adapt due to limited financial resources. Hoarding and market manipulation further distort the system. In some cases, large traders or storage owners deliberately hold back supply to create artificial shortages, driving up prices in the market. When prices rise, they release the stock and make significant profits. While this benefits those controlling the supply, it harms both consumers and farmers. Consumers pay higher prices while farmers do not benefit because they have already sold their produce at lower rates earlier in the cycle. This practice highlights how power and control within the supply chain can be used to exploit both ends of the market. Infrastructure weaknesses also contribute to inefficiency and loss. Poor road networks, lack of proper transportation, and inadequate storage facilities lead to significant post-harvest losses. A portion of the food produced never even reaches the market due to spoilage or damage during transit. This loss reduces the overall supply, which can push prices higher. But again, farmers do not benefit from this increase because the losses occur after the produce has left their hands. Investing in better infrastructure could reduce these losses, improve efficiency, and create a more balanced distribution of profits. But such investments are often slow or insufficient. Education and awareness are equally important factors. Many farmers rely on traditional methods of farming and selling, which may not be efficient in today's competitive market. Without access to modern techniques, market information, and financial planning, farmers are unable to maximize their productivity or profits. Extension services, training programs, and access to real-time market data could empower farmers to make better decisions, but these resources are not always available or accessible. This knowledge gap further widens the inequality between farmers and other players in the agricultural economy. At its core, the issue is about power imbalance. Farmers operate at the lowest level of the supply chain with the least amount of control, while those higher up, middlemen, distributors, and large retailers, have more influence over pricing, storage, and distribution. This imbalance allows profits to concentrate away from the producers and toward those who control the flow of goods. As long as this structure remains unchanged, the cycle will continue. Food prices will rise, consumers will struggle, and farmers will remain poor. The solution to this problem requires systemic change. Strengthening farmer cooperatives can give farmers collective bargaining power, allowing them to negotiate better prices and reduce dependence on middlemen. Improving infrastructure such as storage and transportation can reduce losses and increase efficiency. Expanding access to digital marketplaces can connect farmers directly with buyers, ensuring a fairer share of profits. Transparent policies and better governance can ensure that subsidies and support reach those who need them most. Most importantly, there must be a shift in how we value farmers, not just as producers but as essential contributors to the economy and society. In conclusion, the rising cost of food and the persistent poverty of farmers are not separate issues. They are two sides of the same broken system. While consumers feel the burden of inflation, farmers bear the weight of inefficiency, inequality, and lack of support. Until these structural problems are addressed, the gap between what people pay for food and what farmers earn will continue to grow. And in that gap lies a harsh reality. The system is designed in a way where everyone pays more but the farmer still earns less.